Morning.
It's too late to turn back.
Oh, you passed that point a long time ago, didn't you?
Yeah. But there's something that you said this morning that I really identified with the sort of the shell, the bombed out home, and this very vivid image of these jagged walls, blackened, bombed, desolated, yet there is still identity there. So,
it's the love part, my friend.
Excuse me?
It's the love part. It's the love. That's the next thing.
That's so funny. You should say that. Just last weekend, somebody told me that too.
The universe is persistent and repetitive.
Okay. So in 13 days, we'll be sharing some time at retreat. How would it be best to work with that? Any pointers?
Feel. Mm-hmm. That's it. Feel.
As I sit in meditation, feel.
Everything. Mm-hmm. Start with the small stuff. Yeah, in meditation, feel too. But just feel things. The next person you encounter. Do you know what it's? There's a sense is like, yes, I feel this cup, right? Or I can touch the flower. I don't want to touch them because they're doing fine on their own. But we can feel through the senses. That's a kind of feeling, right?
Right.
And then there's a way that, say, if we encounter each other, there's an intuitive way of feeling, right? There's a kind of openness that almost like it just reaches out or becomes available. And we're predominantly then connecting intuitively the sense of each other, the sense of the person that's in front of you, like the sense of the person that's in front of me right now, the feel of you, the sense of you, right? It can be a very, very subtle thing. It might be overt, but it often starts out being very, very subtle. And it's just a way of starting to it's a very simple thing, but it helps you to start to move from the intellect. Contacting things through the intellect. Contacting yourself through the intellect. Seeing this about yourself, noticing this, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel that way? What's this? Sometimes, as you know, I use inquiry for a part of my teaching as well. There's also a part where I think it's very, 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 very important to be able to contact things through a sort of direct intuitive sense of them. Direct intuitive sense. Because that is originated. That's what this is for. Mm-hmm. From shoulders to waist, and probably down to your toes. Right? It's down that far. That there's something in us that can contact life and contact. Yeah, when you're meditating, you can contact yourself that way, and a kind of feeling that's. This is another one of those paradoxes that I'm going to mention for the moment. I have a couple minutes. I'll try to do it in just a couple. It's a paradox. It's one of the weaknesses, I think, of sort of modern non-duality. And it's also sort of the weakness of a certain kind of insight, to believe it or not. I know that sounds strange, but there's one thing, there may be others, there probably are others, but there's one thing that, see, a more theistic approach to all this, God as other, has as a distinct advantage over sort of more modern forms of non-duality. You know what that distinct advantage is? It can we can also create otherness to where we're totally disconnected. But if it goes right, it can open you in a certain sense where you are receiving something. You're open to the idea even that you can receive something that you don't create or find in yourself. Right? So from a theistic point of view, if you have God as other, the possible, it has detriments, but it has one of the possible positive points is it can make people more open to something, to receiving something. I'm not saying whether it is or isn't beyond themselves. That's a philosophical, that's a whole other thing. I'm just talking experiential, that they're open to something beyond themselves, to receive it. Often that's the experience, at least initially, maybe not ultimately, but initially the experience of a kind of redemptive kind of love is that you receive something and it almost feels like it's coming from somewhere else. Who knows where it's coming from, but it's definitely feels like it's coming from somewhere else, whether it is or it isn't. So that's one of the, when we take that very vital experience that you don't need a theistic theology to do it. It's just easier to do it that way, right? But if you've seen deeper than God as other, you can't kind of go back and pretend it. If you've seen through it, that's probably one of the dilemmas. So what then is it to become open in such a way that I'm open to something that I'm not trying to find within the limitations of my current experience of myself. Do you know? That I'm open. I don't have to create some idea of something outside of me, but I'm open to something that I cannot create in any way, that I can only receive. And that also is kind of an intuitive feel. What does it feel like when you're open to something that you know you can't create, but you can only receive it? If you can only receive it, then nothing in you is trying to create it. Nothing. But you can receive it. Where it comes from, that's a whole other question that if you get too far into it, it just muddies the whole thing, then you get into theology and all that, and I don't think it helps too much. But as an experiential level, I think it's actually a very real experience that people have, and that at a certain point of our spirituality, it is exactly the medicine that we need. And this is your medicine. If I was a doctor, I would say intuitively, and just have the sense of feeling things, that helps. But also intellectually, the idea, start with the idea of receiving something that you can't create. And even what's the feelings? You start simple. See, that's the challenge of all this is, can I keep it simple? Can I keep it real? Like even to be in this room together or with each other, right? So we can be here, we can talk together, we can encounter each other. But what if we just went, okay, now what's the experience? Is there anything different than what we're doing right now? And if I just completely only had the intention for a moment of receiving this moment. What does it feel like just to receive it?
I feel it in my heart right now.
You feel it?
Yeah.
Just the question elicits the receiving.
Yeah.
And your body, not so much your head, but your body starts to go, oh, that's what receiving means. It's more like that feeling. That's what I mean when I say feel. It's really, what is it to receive this moment, or what is it to receive the next person you're with? What is it to really receive? What is it to sit in meditation and receive the totality of that moment, no matter what it is? Pleasant, unpleasant, quiet, busy. That's the homework.
Receive it in my heart with love.
Receive it in your heart, because this is the organ that we're receiving. This is the area that we take life in through. It's right through the chest. I mean, it's not something we're taught, that this whole, not just your physical heart, but this whole chest area, it is a biological, it's like another sense organ. It functions as a whole, and when the more you get used to it, the more you feel that you receive life predominantly through this organ here. This is a sensory organ, like sight or sound or touch. It's more subtle, and so we don't pay attention to it, but that's where you get it.
Yeah.
That's where it comes in. And that's where it flows out too. Right?
Right.
That's where it flows out. That's where love comes in, that's where love flows out.
The person who pointed this out to me last weekend, she talked about self-love.
Mm-hmm.
That only when I can love myself truly, unconditionally, would I receive what I'm looking for.
That's true. That's true. But how do you create that?
That was my question.
Yeah.
There was no answer.
That's what I'm talking about, though. See, to me, there's if we look at it in terms of self-love, there can be the self-love, which I'm not saying has no merit, because it does. It's not my area of expertise. Having the ego, and I don't say that in a derogatory sense, I just say it in a factual sense, the ego coming to value and love and be okay with itself. Mm-hmm. That's fine, that's great. Most people don't have it, but if they can have it, it's fantastic. That's a kind of self-love. It has its limitations because there will almost always be some underlying current of friction if you dig down deep enough in it. The kind of self-love I'm talking about, which is a kind of self-love, that when I use the word redemptive love, it's a self-love, but it's not a self-love that is generated by anything we could call personal. It's not generated by, it's received, but it's not generated.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
And it's an affirmation. Do you know? That's what it feels like. It's a deep, 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 even beyond ego, it's a mm-hmm. deep affirmation of one's whole humanity, and it feels like, where did that come from?
Yeah. And I've touched upon that, but it just doesn't stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just avail yourself of it. You just avail.
Okay.
Yeah, make yourself available.
Okay.
All right, my friend. Yeah.